Welcome to Lair the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, the difference between hard rock and heavy metal. For me, what I hear is the difference between hard rock and heavy metal. This is something that you'll hear me sometimes say on the channel. Way back, my very first video I ever made was bands that are often called heavy metal that in my opinion are not heavy metal. And most of those groups were groups that I considered to be hard rock bands. For instance, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin. They are hard rock bands for me. They are not metal bands. Not that they don't have moments or songs that are metal, very metal, but for the most part, the majority of their work is what I would consider to be hard rock. And I thought it would be fun because I reference this a lot of times in videos to try to give you some examples of what I mean, what I hear as the difference between hard rock and heavy metal. I'm sitting in a little farther back here than I usually am in the videos because I wanted to try to be able to get the guitar in the shot here. All right, so there's a few main differences for me between hard rock and heavy metal. Hard rock tends to be more based on the blues. Now, I'm going to tailor this video for people who don't know anything about guitar or don't know anything about music. So I'm going to be making a lot of broad generalizations as I'm speaking here because I can't cover, everything, trying to explain scales and all these other things in a video like this. This is just a broad overview of what I'm talking about. So blues music tends to be based around what's called the blues scale. Okay, so in hard rock, the riffs tend to be based around that and the chords that kind of go with the blues scale. So you might hear a hard rock band play something like... Okay, you could picture Aerosmith playing a riff like that, or AC/DC playing a riff like that. Okay, very AC/DC-like. It also has a certain kind of bit of a swing to a lot of it. You think of Aerosmith, think of Guns N' Roses, you think of AC/DC. They have a little bit of a swing and a groove to what they do. For me, that's a key characteristic of hard rock. Now, heavy metal, although it does use the blues scale a lot, it also tends to use what are called full minor scales or regular natural minor scales. So in metal, you'll get here's a natural minor scale. So a metal riff might be more like... Okay? That's me using more of the natural minor scale rather than emphasizing more of the blues scale. The other thing is rhythmically. Remember I said with hard rock, it tends to have more of a swingy, feel to it. Heavy metal tends to be a little bit more rhythmically straightforward. And here's an example of metal uses this note is in the blues scale, but the way metal uses it, it emphasizes this note more. So you get... Whereas in a hard rock, more blues-based thing, it would be more like... be something more like that, using that note more as this note more as like a passing note. So there's an example of the difference between the scales that the two styles would emphasize more. Hard rock, more blues scale, heavy metal, the blues scale used slightly differently, and the full minor scale. And also rhythmically, again, metal tends to be a little bit more straightforward. The chugging, that's a very classic metal thing. Metal also likes to use this one note right above whatever the key you're in. So in this case, we're in the key of E. This note right here. Right, makes it sound very metal, whereas if you were doing something blues, you'd be more emphasizing. It just emphasizes different notes. And the rhythmic thing, when guys tend to solo in hard rock, again, it tends to be based more around the blues scale. That kind of stuff. Angus Young, Guns N' Roses, again, they use all that. Whereas metal, a lot of times will use more the full minor scale, like we mentioned before. That kind of thing. Think of Yngwie Malmsteen. That kind of stuff. The other thing is that this is why, for me, when people talk about a lot of the early bands that influenced heavy metal, I always make this distinction between bands that were just playing loud blues, like Blue Cheer. They played pretty much blues rock, but just really loud and with really distorted guitars. Whereas Black Sabbath started using more of these minor scales and emphasizing these certain notes to give it that darker sound. Whereas Blue Cheer would have done something like... they would have done something more like that, if you can sort of hear that difference between the two. Then also when you factor in other things too, like the lyrics and the melody lines that the singer used, again, in the more hard rock, they're basing more of their melody lines off of blues. They tend to be singing more about partying, drinking, women, stuff like that, whereas heavy metal tends to talk about more intense, darker subject matter. You think of some of the lyrics in Black Sabbath songs like Electric Funeral and Into the Void and stuff like that, whereas Aerosmith was more, and AC/DC is more like, women, drinking, partying, and stuff like that. So that factors into it too for me. But when I'm thinking sonically, it really comes down to those two things. The tone that they're going for. Are they going for that more darker heavy metal thing? That more chugging, sort of fist in the air, or is it more of a blues? Is it more of that type of feel, or is it more of that chugging, darker, more minor scale feel to it? So, okay, so there you go. There's just a little quick little thing here showing you hard rock in heavy metal. So just to give it, all right, so if I'm very AC/DC like, all right, here's something that AC/DC might do. Okay, very AC/DC. Here's something very Iron Maiden like. Okay, so you get a little bit of a difference there. Those could have been Iron Maiden or AC/DC songs, right? And it's because I'm just picking from the scales and using the rhythms that those bands tend to use. Now, when you get into thrash metal and stuff, it's basically taking heavy metal and it's just speeding it up then, and it's throwing in some more notes even outside of the minor scale, more what we call chromatic notes. So you get like... right? Sounds like something that could have been a Megadeth song or a Metallica song, and they're taking the minor scale, and they're adding a whole bunch of what are called chromatic notes in between notes to give it that more slightly dissonant sound. Yeah, that type of thing. So, okay, so there you go. There's, in my opinion, a difference between hard rock and heavy metal with some examples here on the guitar. Let me know what you guys think, you know, maybe some examples of bands that you feel are hard rock, not heavy metal, bands that are straight up heavy metal. Let me know in the comments down below. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.